There are moments in football that transcend the game itself, moments that connect to something much larger, to a country's identity, its pride, its pain. This is the story of one of those moments and of the man who carried it alone. To understand what happened in the summer of 1994, you need to go back a few years. Colombia, in the late 1980s and early 1990s, was a country in turmoil. Violence was everywhere. Powerful figures operated in the shadows, controlling businesses, cities, and entire institutions. Football was no exception. The sport had become deeply intertwined with money from the criminal underworld. Clubs were funded by dangerous men who expected results, and who made sure everyone knew the consequences of failure. And yet, out of all of this, out of all the darkness, something extraordinary happened on the football pitch. The Colombian national team began to win, not just win, dominate. Between 1991 and 1993, they went on one of the most remarkable runs in South American football history, 25 wins out of 26 matches. They beat Argentina 5-0 in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, on their home soil. The result stunned the football world. For a moment, just a moment, football gave Colombia something it desperately needed: hope. A sense that something good was possible, that the country could be seen differently by the rest of the world. The players understood what they represented, especially one of them. His name was Andrés Escobar Saldarriaga. He was born in Medellin on March 13, 1967, the son of a banker, a middle-class kid who grew up with a football at his feet and a quiet determination that set him apart from everyone around him. He was not the flashiest player on the team. He was not the one the cameras always found. He was the one his teammates trusted most. As a central defender for Atlético Nacional, he had already won the Copa Libertadores, the most prestigious club competition in South America, in 1989. He was professional, disciplined, respectful. In a sport, and in a country, where those qualities were not always rewarded, Andrés Escobar stood out. By the time the 1994 World Cup came around, Colombia was not just a team. They were a symbol. Pelé, the greatest footballer who ever lived, had publicly named them as his pick to win the entire tournament. The pressure was immense. And beneath that pressure, in ways that most fans watching from their television screens could not fully see, there were forces at work that had nothing to do with football. This is the story of what happened next, and of everything that came after. In the summer of 1994, the eyes of the world turned to the United States. The FIFA World Cup had arrived. 32 nations, billions of fans, the biggest sporting event on the planet. And one of the teams everyone was watching was Colombia. They had gone 27 matches without a defeat before arriving at the tournament. They had beaten Argentina 5-0 in Buenos Aires, a result so shocking that even the Argentine fans couldn't believe what they were seeing. They had players that made crowds stop breathing: Carlos Valderrama, Faustino Asprilla, Freddy Rincon. Pelé, the greatest player who ever lived, had publicly picked Colombia as his favorite to win the entire tournament. And at the center of all of it was a man named Andrés Escobar. He was 27 years old, a defender, the captain, the kind of player his teammates trusted completely, calm under pressure, disciplined, professional. His nickname was El Caballero, the gentleman. To understand what happened next, you need to understand what Colombia looked like in 1994. The country had spent years under the shadow of powerful, dangerous men and who had infiltrated almost every corner of society, including football. Clubs were funded by figures with connections to the criminal underworld. Money flowed through the sport in ways that official records could never explain. The national team itself included players from clubs tied to these powerful interests, and when Colombia played, a lot of people with a lot at stake were watching very, very closely. The 1994 World Cup started badly for Colombia. In their opening match, they lost 3-1 to Romania. A result nobody expected. The reaction back home was immediate and frightening. Players received threats, families were warned, the team was told in no uncertain terms that failure was not acceptable. So, when Colombia walked onto the field on June 22, 1994 to face the United States, their second group match, the weight on their shoulders was almost impossible to describe. They needed to win, not just for football, for everything else that came with it. In the 34th minute, an American midfielder named John Harkes sent a cross into the Colombian penalty area. Andrés Escobar stretched out his leg to intercept it. The ball hit his foot and flew into his own net. Own goal, Colombia 0, United States 1. The United States won the match 2-1. Colombia was eliminated from the World Cup in the group stage. Escobar knew immediately what had happened, not just in football terms. He was offered options. His brother's family was in Miami. He could stay in the United States. He could avoid going home entirely. Friends begged him to wait. He refused. His sister, Maria Esther, remembered what he said. He looked at her and said, "I want to go to Colombia and show my face." He boarded a plane home. And before leaving, he did something remarkable. He wrote a column for a Colombian newspaper. In it, he addressed the people of Colombia directly. He wrote about mistakes, about moving forward, about not letting a single moment define a person or a nation. He signed it. Life doesn't end here. The column was published on July 2, 1994. Andrés Escobar never got to see the response. On the evening of July 1, 1994, 9 days after the own goal, Andrés Escobar went out with friends. They went to a bar in the El Poblado neighborhood of Medellin, then to a nightclub called El Indio. At some point, his friends and he went their separate ways. At approximately 3 in the morning, Escobar was alone in the parking lot sitting in his car. 3 men approached him, 2 brothers, Juan Santiago and Pedro David Galón, powerful figures with deep connections to the criminal underworld, who had reportedly lost significant amounts of money betting on Colombia's performance in the tournament. They began to taunt him, to mock him about the own goal. Escobar refused to back down. He demanded they treat him with respect. One of the brothers looked at him and said, "You don't know who you're dealing with." The brother's driver stepped forward. His name was Humberto Castro Muñoz. He raised a weapon and fired 6 shots. It was reported that he shouted "goal" after every shot, the same word that Colombian commentators had screamed 6 times when the own goal went in. Andrés Escobar was taken to hospital. He died 45 minutes later. He was 27 years old. The news hit Colombia like a shockwave. More than 120,000 people attended his funeral. His teammates, escorted by police, walked behind the car carrying his body for over 10 miles to the cemetery. The world watched in silence. Humberto Castro Muñoz was arrested the same night. He confessed the following day. He was sentenced to 43 years in prison. He served 11. The Galón brothers served 15 months for concealing the murder. 15 months. The connection between the murder and the own goal was widely believed but never formally proven in court. The full truth of what happened that night, who ordered it, who knew, and why, has never been completely established. What is established is this: a man scored an accidental goal in a football match. He went home because he felt he owed his country his presence. He was killed. In 2002, the city of Medellin unveiled a statue in his honor. In 2024, 30 years after his death, one of the Galón brothers was himself shot dead entering a restaurant. The story of Andrés Escobar has no clean ending. It has no redemption arc. It has a parking lot at 3 in the morning and a man who refused to hide. Before he died, He wrote, "Life doesn't end here. We have to move forward. We will meet again, because life does not end here." That is what they left out of the history books.